Thank you, President. And the President, the DG, the panelists, dear delegates, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to start the panel discussions of the international organization who has signed the agreement with the OIE. There are 5 representatives going to sit for the panelist discussion this morning. Today I have the honor to present the panel discussion with the representative from the 5 international organizations that have cooperation agreement with the OIE. The representative will discuss with us the important establishment, trust, and mutual trade system through transparency and monitoring the implementation of international standards. As we all know that the international trade is not possible without common rule and trust between countries. Without transparency, there is no trust is possible. Transparency is increasingly demanded by society of a great concern at national and international level, especially in international trade activity, which should rely on the implementation of the international standard. It is my great pleasure to introduce the member of the panel, Dr. Rolando Acala of WTO, and follow Ms. Cruz of Codex Alimentarius, Dr. Tekola of FAO, Ms. Mulholland of WHO, and Dr. Plante of the World Bank. To facilitate the discussion this morning, I would like to start with the, I will ask the panel to express their organization statement. Then secondly, I will follow by the inviting the presentation of the 2 representatives of OECD and the new initiative observatory project to give you a presentation. Then afterward, we're going to open the floor to your delegates for question, remark, and comment. Now, you have heard repeatedly that the DG addressed the importance of cooperation with the international organization. And this section will give you and the panelists, the partner organization, to address the general session, in particular this section of their statement. So to start with, I would like to invite Dr. Acala of the WTO to give your statement, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and great pleasure to be here in front of you, dear delegates. I would like first to thank, of course, the OIE and Director General Eloi for the invitation to attend this general session. So the World Trade Organization, WTO, deals with the rules of trade negotiated and ratified by WTO members to help producers, exporters, and importers conduct their business. So the agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the SPS agreement, sets out the rules for governments to apply animal health, plant health, and food safety measures, which affect trade while ensuring that these measures are not used as disguised restrictions. Transparency is one of the fundamental cross-cutting principles of the WTO agreements, including the SPS agreement. The legal obligations of WTO members is to notify proposed or draft regulation as well as modified SPS measures in draft format when these deviate from the relevant international standards explicitly recognized by the SPS agreement, including, of course, in the case of animal health, those of the OIE. The SPS Committee transparency recommendations, however, encourage the notification of such measures even when these conform to international standards. So this recommendation goes beyond the legal obligation of WTO members and aims, again, at enhancing transparency regarding the use of international standards. So during 2017, and the first quarter of 2018, almost 60% of the notifications which identified animal health or protection from zoonosis as their objective referred to an OIE standard as relevant by either indicating the application of the OIE standard or a deviation from it. Indeed, the use of international standards, as it has been repeated yesterday and this morning, is central to the implementation of the SPS agreement. So this is clearly embodied in its legal provisions, in the work of the SPS committee, and in all our capacity building activities. Articles 3.4 and 10.4 of the SPS agreement strongly encourage the adoption of international standards and call on WTO members to participate in the work of the relevant standard-setting bodies. In WTO SPS-related disputes, the use or lack of use of international standards in setting SPS requirements is the benchmark that is first used. This means that WTO members, in applying their national animal health measures, must ensure that their measures are based on the international standards developed by the OIE, unless a deviation from these standards can be scientifically justified. So also, as per its mandate, the SPS committee discusses issues related to the implementation and monitoring of international standards, firstly through the participation of the OIE and the other two standard-setting bodies as permanent observers to provide updates on new or modified international standards. Secondly, through the monitoring procedure on harmonization, which was adopted by the SPS committee and encourages WTO members to identify trade problems related to the use or non-use of a sanitary or phytosanitary international standard. These problems are then drawn to the attention of the relevant international standard-setting body. The aim here again being once again here of encouraging members to use international standards. Finally, I would like to refer to our joint technical assistance and capacity building activities. These activities' main message is that the standards developed by the OIE are the reference standards which WTO members are encouraged to use in setting their animal health-related measures. So since 1994, the OIE has participated in more than 100 of these WTO SPS training activities, providing it an opportunity to further discuss the use of its standards. And there is also, of course, the Standards and Trade Development Facility, the STDF, which was established by 5 organizations, the FAO, OIE, the World Bank, the WHO, and WTO, to support developing countries to implement international SPS standards and improve their ability to gain access to markets. So the STDF, through its more than 170 projects and other activities, has encouraged harmonization with international standards, including animal health standards. So to finish, members recognize that harmonization of national requirements on the basis of international standards facilitates safe trade, as products conforming to the same standards may be trusted and accepted by buyers more widely. Thus, the WTO supports the interplay of transparency and implementation of international standards for safe and smooth trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention. And please hold on your any common question until the end of the statement made by other organizations. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Cruz for your intervention. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Madame Eloy, distinguished delegates, dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure being here together with you at this important meeting and the important panel representing the Secretariat of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. The Codex Alimentarius, or Food Code, is a collection of standards, guidelines, and codes of practice adopted by the Codex Alimentarius Commission, the joint FAO-WHO Food Standards Program. These food standards and related texts aim at protecting consumers' health and ensuring fair practices in the food trade. Since its foundation in 1963, the Codex system has evolved in an open, transparent, and inclusive way to meet emerging challenges. The procedures for preparing standards are well defined, open, and transparent. Currently, the Codex Alimentarius Commission has 189 Codex members, 188 member countries, and 1 member organization, being the European Union. And there are 226 Codex observers, 56 intergovernmental organizations, 154 non-governmental organizations, and 16 other UN organizations. Codex standards are based on sound science provided by independent international risk assessment bodies or ad hoc consultations organized by FAO and WHO. The publication of the Codex Alimentarius is intended to guide and promote the elaboration and establishment of definitions and requirements for foods to assist in their harmonization, and in doing so, to facilitate international trade. While being recommendations for voluntary application by members, Codex standards serve in many cases as a basis for national legislation. The reference made to Codex standards in the World Trade Organization's Agreement on Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures, the SPS agreement, means that Codex has far-reaching implications for resolving trade disputes. WTO members that wish to apply stricter food safety measures than those set by Codex may be required to justify these measures scientifically. The Codex system, through its Codex standards and related text and how they are developed and applied, contribute to safety, quality, and fairness of international food trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cruz, for your intervention. So you hear a lot about trust, about transparency. I think that's the partner organization has brought in the value and add to our OIE work. Now, next, I would like to invite Dr. Tekola of FAO to give you interventions. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, DG Elwa, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to convey greetings from the headquarters of FAO, and let me appreciate the organizers of this panel to make this panel a bit colorful and more gender balanced. And beyond that, we are lucky to be encircled by such flowers around us. FAO believes that the importance of trust in sanitary and phytosanitary inner workings cannot be overstated. At the same time, the importance of SPS-related capacity development efforts to FAO cannot be understated. Effective SPS management is essential for sustainable use of agricultural resources. It's essential for efficient and inclusive trade. It's necessary for food security, and it's necessary for preventing food chain emergencies. From a development point of view, capacity building in SPS measures is key to the achievement of all the 5 FAO's strategic objectives. This goes from poverty reduction, sustainable agriculture development, meeting the international standards, and ensuring the resilience of communities and nations to cover regional as well as local level engagements. FAO invests greatly in implementing and developing a range of tools of knowledge products that enable national and regional actors to implement and build a safe multilateral trade system, meet Codex standards, current regulatory platforms, and further promotes trust and equity versus protectionism and commodity dumpings. Currently, capacity development activities globally yield less than expected from the sum of the parts. If we are serious about optimizing our impact in the resource-constrained environment, we need to strengthen coordination at national and international levels. WTO's Standard Trade Development Facility, STDF platform, certainly has a critical role to play, and setting of targets would be valuable. It's widely reported that governments and private sectors alike in many developing countries consider that SPS-related issues raise the greatest challenge to their market competitiveness. Enabling effective SPS management through carefully planned capacity development, trade facilitating, and countries should actively seek such opportunities rather than passively wait for others to come. I'm pleased to reconfirm FAO's continuous commitment to our partnership in working with OIE and other standard-setting bodies and development platforms, which need to be people-centric and promote equity among nations, gender, and advancement to meet the target laid out by the 2030 Agenda and its 17 SDGs. Safe trade, safe commodities, access to nutritious food, and equitable growth are key factors for success. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takula, for your very confirmative of the partnership working with OIE. I think you hear the inclusiveness, you hear the food chain, then international standard, that all binding together as we are working to serve the well-being of our development. Now next, I would like to invite Ms. Mulholland from WHO. As you know, WHO has been in the area of our medical science, and which is veterinarian is willing to work very closely. You have the floor, please.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to everybody. And thank you very much to the OIE DG, Madame Eloi, for inviting WHO to participate in the 86th General Session and this important panel discussion. So, Mr. President, distinguished delegates, every year, almost 1 in 10 people fall ill from eating contaminated food, and 420,000 die as a result. These figures are from the first ever estimates of the global burden of foodborne diseases that were carried out by WHO to highlight the importance of addressing foodborne diseases. The international food safety standards established by the Codex Alimentarius Commission are one important way of combating foodborne disease and reducing this disease burden around the world. If Codex standards matter and are taken seriously, it is because they contain an important ingredient, and this is trust. Consumers can trust the safety and quality of the food products they buy, and importers can trust that the food they ordered will be in accordance with their specifications. Building trust requires transparency, and this is a hallmark of Codex standards. Transparency is a key guiding principle throughout the entire process of development of standards. Upstream, the scientific advice from FAO and WHO expert bodies that provide the evidence base for Codex standards is based on transparency. Calls for experts and calls for data are made publicly and are open to all. The expert bodies themselves work in a transparent way as they operate according to published procedures and criteria. Possible conflicts of interest are rigorously assessed by WHO and FAO. Meeting reports are freely available to all as a global public good. Transparency continues in the process of developing and adopting standards. All Codex meetings are open fora where anyone has the possibility to sit in and observe exactly how standards are developed. The standards are then made freely available without charge, and anyone, anywhere, can access and use the standards. This transparency is an important basis for building trust between countries. Nothing contributes more to transparency than being an eyewitness. Nothing contributes more to building trust between countries than building relationships and networks during Codex meetings. But many countries cannot participate in Codex due to financial limitations at national level. It is for this reason that FAO and WHO created the Codex Trust Fund. The first Codex Trust Fund, that ran from 2004 to 2015, supported countries to participate physically in Codex meetings and provided training for countries to help them understand how to participate effectively in the Codex process. Through this, more and more countries became not just eyewitnesses, but effective actors in the standard-setting process. The new Codex Trust Fund, which was launched in January 2016, deepens this support by providing support to countries to build solid, sustainable, and effective national Codex structures. Countries are selected for this support using a global, objective, and transparent process. Data sharing also builds trust. Another way that WHO is contributing to transparency and building trust between countries is in the sharing of data and information. The FAO-WHO International Food Safety Authorities Network, also known as InfoSan, ensures rapid sharing of information during food safety emergencies to stop the spread of contaminated food from one country to another. Data that is essential for making informed, evidence-based decisions on food safety is available through WHO databases, including the Global Environment Monitoring System, Food Contamination Monitoring and Assessment Program, which is also known as GEMS Food. Total Diet Studies is a tool promoted by WHO that allows countries to identify the most at-risk foods consumed in a country and the priority chemicals present in these foods to take evidence-based action for public health. WHO's international health regulations that OIE DG referred to yesterday are a transparent and obligatory instrument that act as a guarantor of global public health security by helping the international community prevent and respond to acute public health risks that have the potential to cross borders and threaten people worldwide. Scientific data and information and international food safety standards are global public goods that depend on transparent and objective processes. It is the duty and also the unique mandate of international organizations like WHO, FAO, OIE to provide the tools I have mentioned to member states so that we can build trust, improve transparency, and promote the use of standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mulholland, for your intervention. I think it's very clear that repeatedly standard, trust, and standard have to be scientific-based standard, where your delegates sitting and we have the commission to present and finding moving every year for the new evidence. So I think the last but not least, I would like to invite Dr. Plante of the World Bank give your interventions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear delegates, dear participants, thank you also to the OIE, of course, for inviting us as part of this panel. I would like to first reiterate the mandate, of course, of the World Bank, which is to fight extreme poverty and boost shared prosperity. And in this context, as we are focusing today on the transparency aspect, I wanted to highlight that, yeah, transparency is one of the core principles that the World Bank group as a whole has as a core, at its core. It's one element that has been increasingly put forward during the past years, and putting more and more of its documents open to disclosure for the whole public. Up to 2010, when it became the open access policy. And in this context, it has decided to do so because the World Bank trusts that openness would be a driver for inclusiveness, capacity to engage stakeholders, capacity to engage every partners to take part in the decision-making process, in the building the policies at the national levels, and of course implementation down the road of different investments. So that has been something absolutely crucial for the World Bank over the past years, and this policy continue. Of course, within all these general principles, we have to bear in mind that we always have to strike a balance between a sort of full transparency and maintain some sort of confidentiality. So thinking about the process of the observatory that we are going to hear about, that's something which has to be really discussed and well understood by everyone, you know, until which aspect we think that this kind of elements need to be fully transparent for the interest of all. So just from this, just jumping into the kind of key investments that the bank has and in countries to achieve this objective. Of course, we support the countries in development of their policies, and we strive to help build a better governance system, so governance as a whole at the level of the government, to of course include more inclusiveness, more transparent process to develop the policy, the regulations, to build a ground level also for the private sector to thrive, and the public trust also in the government policies. More specifically on the animal health level and the veterinary side, for us what is absolutely crucial also is to build this kind of capacity and system based on transparent, harmonized, objective evaluations. That's why the PVS pathway has been so important since its inception 10 years ago, to develop all the investment the World Bank is financing in different countries. And as the portfolio in livestock keeps increasing, this aspect remains as relevant as it was years ago. So in this context, transparency remains absolutely critical, and as trade is also evolving, and just looking at the trends over the past years, between 1980 and 2011, if we just look at how things have evolved, South-South exchange is increasing really rapidly. We moved from 8% to 26% of the South-South exchange in the world, while at the same time the North-North was decreasing from 46 to 30%. So this South-South exchange brings also a lot of value to most of these countries, which sometimes are within the middle income to low income countries, and of course bring some kind of challenges linked to the capacity of the services to implement these standards. So we remain committed to continue to support these countries to, of course, implement these standards, and within these standards, implement increased transparency in this process. So thank you for your attention.